Hello, everybody. I'm Tamika Holmes with All Things Business One Stop Shop, and welcome to our nonprofit incubator training. We put together a team to help for-profit and nonprofit organizations build capacity and help them grow in their businesses and the services that they provide to our community and for customers. And I'm going to allow Ms. Belinda to introduce herself. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Belinda Hobson. I am a co-founder, partner of All Things Business One Stop Shop. I have over 16 years of administrative HR, project management, and event management experience. We're here tonight to discuss bylaws and board development.
So we asked for a couple of questions, and we want to start out answering a couple of questions that were sent in. And question number one was, how do you link your nonprofit to multiple streams of income? How do you get started? How do you determine whether your business should be nonprofit or for-profit? And how can you fund it? So it was a question sent in by Sean Dansby, and we're going to answer that question. So first, you want to take a look at exactly what your business is. So is it selling a product? Is it providing a service? And if it is providing a service, is it a community-based service? As a nonprofit organization, the services and programs that you provide are programs that are for the community. For instance, an after-school care program may be considered a nonprofit program because they're providing after-school care. Most churches are automatically considered nonprofit because they're not drawing in a profit per se for the church, but they're drawing in revenue to support the church and the organization. So the difference between for-profit and nonprofit. The difference between for-profit is you're drawing in a profit, and that profit can be used to reinvest in the business, and you can also use that profit to grow your household income and things of that sort. It's solely a business that's going to benefit you, the business owner, as well as the customers. However, a nonprofit organization is an organization that belongs to the community. So whatever community services that you provide, whatever services that you are going to use to help grow the community, it's a community-based program. It's a community-based organization. Now, how does nonprofit organizations get their funding? So there are multiple ways. Number one is through donations. You can solicit individual donations. You can solicit foundation donations, and you can have fundraisers. Another thing is you can use the expertise of someone who's very familiar with grants and grant writing and grant research, and have grants written on either a local, state, or federal level. So in order to qualify for that funding, that's going to lead us to talking about some things about getting your bylaws together and making sure that all your paperwork is in order. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Belinda to start with bylaws, and we're going to ask a couple of questions while she's giving you the overview of what that is.
Okay, basically your bylaws are your internal operating rules. The federal tax law does require an organization a specific language in your bylaws, but if you're a nonprofit, you definitely want to have bylaws because it outlines your internal policies and procedures. It basically tells how your board will conduct business, how your executive director will conduct business, how your Policies and procedures will operate, how the organization itself will operate. Some state laws require nonprofits to have specific language in their bylaws, and some do not. It's advisable that you really have internal operating rules. Why you need bylaws, why they're required is, as I stated, it's basically your internal operating policies and procedures. It tells you the name of the organization, the purpose and the powers that the board has, the executive director has, advisory committees that you may have. It outlines your membership. How long should your chairman or co-chairman, your secretary, your treasurer, how long should they serve? What is their authority in the organization? What can the executive director do without the approval of the board? It tells you how you can vote, who has voting powers. Do the board has all the voting powers? Do the advisory committees, do they have voting powers? It basically outlines the number of board of directors you would have, their terms, what's the qualifications for being on the board, whether it's a paid board or a non-paid board. How do you remove board of director members that's not doing their job or fulfilling their commitment? The accountability of the board members, the accountability of the employees of the nonprofit, the volunteers, the executive director, the program director. It tells you how you fill vacancies. Say one of your board members leave town. How do you fill that vacancy? How do you actually go about contracts? Who approve contracts? Do the board have to approve the contracts, or does the executive director have the authority to enter into contracts for the organization? It talks about record keeping. What type of records do you maintain? What type of records do you destroy? How long do you keep these records on file? Also, is in place for transparency, to being accountable. So when you get audited, how do you have it set up where you'll be able to actually pass an audit? What does the bylaws state about your banking account, your insurance, electronic mail, emails, who signs the checks, who authorized the payment, who approved the budget. It talks about what happens if you have a reporting violation. Just say you're filing your annual Form 990 and you realize, or your 1023, and you realize that there was some discrepancy the last 2 years. How do you report these violations? How do you determine if you find someone who wasn't acting in good faith as far as fraudulent activity? What does your bylaws state in reference to fraudulent activity? So that is the importance of having bylaws for your organization, because it really outlines and is the foundation of the organization.
So a couple of questions have come in. Number one states, how many people do you need to complete a board of directors in the state of Alabama? So the state of Alabama requires a minimum of 3 board members to form your board of directors. You need a chairperson, vice chair, and a secretary. Now, those roles are very essential, and those roles are the governing roles of the organization's executive board. So, for instance, your chairperson is considered your president of the organization, and that's the forward leadership. The vice president fills in for the chairperson or the president when not available. And then your secretary / treasurer, that person is in charge of all of your record keeping. That person's in charge of all of the money that comes in, and essentially that person is the most important person of the board, because if you're ever audited, all of the records must be in order. So because there's 3 members, most board of directors are going to be an odd number, because you never want to end a vote with an even number. You'll never get anything resolved. So it's recommended that your board of directors, no matter how large it grows, ends with an odd number so that the voting privileges will be, the choices may be made efficiently. So essentially, the role of the board of directors are to govern the organization, hire the CEO, assess the business principles, the vision, and the strategy and overall direction of the organization. The CEO or general manager is responsible for hiring all other employees or staff. So depending on how your bylaws are written up, the board of directors may hire the executive director. The executive director in turns will be responsible for hiring the staff. So the executive director is responsible for the day-to-day. So a question came in saying, what are the responsibilities or the role of the executive director? That's the middle person to that organization. So you, up here, you have the executive board. In the middle, you'll have the executive director, and then down here, you'll have your staff. So the executive director is the glue that holds everything together. And their role and responsibilities are to carry out the day-to-day functions of their organization. That day-to-day functions are going to include the bookkeeping, the programs management, the billing, marketing, fundraising, development, until you can get a staff that can be a paid staff or enough volunteers to volunteer in those roles and capacity. Then that executive director is going to wear all of the hats of those many different roles, keeping up with the compliance of all of the records in office, and reporting back to the executive board any challenges, any changes that need to be made, and also acting as that figure, that leadership figure to any volunteers or employees that are under the guidance and leadership of that person. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit. I want to bring up the next topic, developing your board organization. So 2 questions that have come into us. Number 1, does a startup nonprofit organization need to develop an organization chart? And if so, why? So yes, you do need a organization chart. It shows the vision of your direction that the organization is going in. So a lot of organizations are more program driven. They start from, I have a passion of a program that I want to do and I want to implement it. Well, if you're considering starting a nonprofit organization, you should start with the end in mind. What do you want this organization to do 10 to 15 years from now? And then work your way backward to, how am I going to get this done? The benefits of it, what roles am I going to need? And so when we look at the organization chart, the employees that you need, we tell you to start with the positions that you need to fill for the future. So for instance, your board of directors is the starting point, but how do you know what all you need? So we all know that we need information technology. We need somebody that's good in IT, legal services, marketing, and marketing and social media. So if you get the 2 for 1, that'll be good. Grant management, grant development, compliance, administration, and relationship building. So those are just a few roles that you can recruit for. And so our suggestion would be to recruit for those positions on the front end, because they have a specific expertise that will benefit the organization. Now, a caution to recruiting. When you're recruiting volunteers for your organization and you're recruiting specific skill sets, It's very important to make sure that the vision of the individuals that you are recruiting match the vision of your organization. If the visions don't mesh, then it's going to cause for unsuccessful board, which will in turn deter the vision of the organization. So that is who you should include and why you should include it. Okay.
And I wanted to add something to that. That's the purpose of your bylaws. Your bylaws kind of outline how the organization will be organized, which goes back to having an organization chart so you can know the positions that you need for your organization. And that way you'll be able to know when to recruit for those positions, how to fill those positions, and also you'll have an outline of what you need in order for your organization to be successful. You also, from an HR perspective, that way you can start developing your budget and start budgeting that in over time as you start to realize as your organization grows that now you're able to pay staffing. So you going beyond using volunteers for specific positions. And that way you will know what I need to start budgeting for and what the board needs to approve. And you'll be able to go with your justification of your budget and your positions because you've already had those outlined, because you had that organization chart starting from the finish of how you want the organization to look and working your way backwards.
So we had a couple of questions to come in from Miss Yolanda Rab, who has an organization, JC's Place, and her question was, how do you get funding and how do you get committed volunteers? So we talked a little bit about funding. There are various ways you can do funding, soliciting individual donations, maybe setting up a community meeting, giving insight to the vision of the organization, and allowing those people who are interested in the vision to donate. You can go old school. You can have a cookout and raise money that way. Basketball tournament, golf tournaments, all of those are ways that you can build efficient fundraisers. And of course, you have your annual fundraisers that you do, which may come by way of a gala or a dinner or something like that. Those tend to bring in some sort of funding. However, I would caution you on those types of fundings because sometimes you end up spending more money on the event center, the decorations, the food, and you don't draw in nearly as much money for your organization. Also, understanding grants and understanding development. So two key areas that all nonprofit organizations should get educated in on a consistent basis is effective fund development. And in that includes how do you search for grants, how do you write grants, how do you accept a grant, and once you've accepted the grant, how are you going to maintain the grant? And a lot of people get confused and they say, show me the money and I'm ready for all of this money. But if you're a one-man show and you get a grant for $1 million, do you really have the capacity to maintain that $1 million? Now, you could probably hire some people to help you, but if you haven't focused on where you're going to be 10 to 15 years from now, you won't even know what to do from step one to be able to get to that level that you're looking at getting to.
It's something I want to add to that is that a lot of organizations look at, okay, maybe I'm a 1 or 2 team organization and I'm just starting out, but you have to have the capacity to handle business. For instance, if I walked into your business and say, hey, I have $10 million and I need 1 million widgets and within 2 weeks, do your business have the capacity to handle that ideal client, and that's very important. So when you are thinking about having a nonprofit, the reason we're emphasizing start from where you see this nonprofit being in 10 or 15 years, even 5 years, is because you have to do an analysis of your organization capacity, because you never know when that organization is going to get that one client that takes you to a whole nother level. And you have to be prepared. If you want to be at that level, you have to be prepared. Preparation is important. So you have to strategically plan for that ideal client, that ideal contract that will take you to the level that you're striving for your organization to reach. And if you have nothing in place, you never know the day or the moment that ideal client walks into your organization and offer you what you thought may take you 10 or 15 years to get to. It may take you 2 weeks. It could be a month, a year. But do your organization have the capacity to actually handle that type of business? Do your organization have the capacity to handle grants? You know, everyone talks about grants, but what is the capacity of your organization? Because that's what they look at when they determine who is awarded grant money. Do you have the capacity to actually handle the grant money and the funding and to meet the criteria of that grant?
Okay, so our final topic is, who do you need to complete your team? So a lot of organizations start out with passion for a specific cause. So when you're getting ready to develop your team, your first go-to and your first instinct is going to be the family. I'm going to repeat this very slowly. Your board of directors does not need to be family. One more time, your board of directors of your nonprofit organization does not need to be family, because that will cause a huge conflict of interest as you go down the line. An example is if you're acting as the executive director and you have a husband on your board, or if you're acting as the executive director and you have a husband and a sister on the board. That is a major conflict of interest. That means that there's not going to be any clear transparency as to what the direction and the decisions are going to be made best for the organization. So you want to recruit those individuals on your team that have the same vision. Now your family can be volunteers, absolutely. But as far as those executive roles, you wouldn't want those family members to be there. So as you recruit your volunteers, I want you to think outside of the box. Do you have any local colleges nearby? I'm certain that there are a ton of students that need volunteer hours, whether they are part of sororities, fraternities, specific areas like teachers, social workers. There are a ton of ways for you to recruit volunteers. So it's going to be a matter of connecting with those community colleges, those universities, and building relationships, which leads me to number 2. Number 2 is you will need to get out and network and build relationships with individuals to be able to recruit volunteers. Are you a part of any networking groups and organizations? Do you make time to go out to events to talk to people about your organization? And the last question was, what ways can I share my organization's visions? Through networking. Considering hosting a networking event that's inexpensive, partnering with local businesses that have the same heart and vision as your organization and that wouldn't mind helping the donation component of it. As a nonprofit organization, you can obtain local donations. There are restaurants that will be willing to help with food and meals and things like that. It's just a matter of relationship building. And as you build those relationships, you'll be able to get the volunteers and recruitment and team that you need.
And I also want to say, when it comes to networking, and we always preach this in all things business, when you're networking for a purpose. And there's nothing wrong with realizing you're networking for a purpose. You're making connections with individuals or other organizations that you can collaborate or have a partnership with in order to build your organization, also in order to build their organization. So you should not just be going out to just networking events just to go out and socialize. When you are a business owner, you are networking for a purpose. So when you're going out there to network, you're ensuring the people that you're talking to, you're looking for what do they have to offer you and what can you offer them and how can you all collaborate and serve the community. And then a lot of times when you talk about grants, a lot of times grants are looking for see if your organization is collaborating in the community with other organizations, someone that you make and partner with in order to carry out the criteria of the grant. So it's very important to realize that when you are networking for a purpose. It's not just going out to be sociable, but you're going out to network for business purposes to find other organizations or other entrepreneurs and other business owners that you can collaborate with in order to service the community, because that is what a nonprofit is supposed to do, is actually help your local, your state, your federal government provide services to the community that they're unable to fully provide. So you are networking with a purpose.
So as we get ready to come to a close, I wanted to pull up a couple of resources that may help some nonprofit organizations. And as I pull those up, let's see. And I'm going to share my screen. So this is a website called GuideStar. GuideStar is going to be your best friend as a nonprofit organization. It is like your organization's resume, so to speak. When you're looking for funding, most funders may use this particular tool to see who you are, what you're doing, and it has a place for audits, your 990s, your board of directors with descriptions. So GuideStar is a cool tool to get involved with for your organization. And I'm going to share one more tool. Let's see. I want to show you what sample bylaws look like. It's coming up. So when you're getting ready to put together your bylaws, a lot of people get it confused with your articles of incorporation. So the state of Alabama has the typical application for your articles of incorporation. And I'm going to pull it up as well as we and it's just through the Secretary of State. So as you're filing your nonprofit organization, you will need to not only have this form, but you need to have typed up articles of incorporation. So let me share my screen with you. So this is the State of Alabama Domestic Nonprofit Corporation Certificate of Formation. If you are going to be seeking your 501c3 on a federal basis, you will need to attach along with this the articles of incorporation that identify the different articles along with the dissolution clause. So I'm going to pull up what the articles, some sample articles look like with the dissolution clause. Okay, this is a good one. So your articles of incorporation are going to have the different areas. Article 1, which is your definition, but the most important thing I want to bring you to, some of the same data that's on the actual application, but it's more defined. So you see that they have a sample detail of the purpose in here. The World Hunger exhibit. They're wanting to resolve world hunger. In schools, libraries, and public venues, it's detailed. It's telling you how, what, who, when, and where. The nature of the nonprofit. What are they going to be doing? Personal liability and a dissolution clause. Prohibited distributions, restricted activities, and prohibited activities. The governance. So this is a complete set of articles of incorporation, which this document, if you're going to be putting together your nonprofit status, this document needs to be filed with the articles of incorporation application for the state of Alabama. When you submit all of this information, it's going to be recorded at your probate court, and that's the same information you're going to send in with your federal 1023 application to apply for your 501c3 status. So, in other words, all of the paperwork will need to match. Your paperwork at a state level and your paperwork at a federal level needs to match. And if it doesn't, then you need to file an amended, whatever amended documents, whether on a state or federal level, for that particular part that's incorrect. So, it's real important to make sure all of these documents are in compliance and in order so you don't have any hiccups in your organization. And as you update these records, making sure that all entities, state and a federal level, are updated on any changes that happen within your organization. So that is our session. We ended about 9 minutes early. Our next week topic is going to be for the for-profit side, those who have businesses in for-profit, and you don't want to miss that next topic. It's called Mind Your Business. So if you really want to know what it's about, you're going to have to tune in. Ms. Belinda has something.
I want to add in on our website, www.atv-onestop.com. We have a tip sheet for your bylaws and any other resources that you may need. If you have any questions, please feel free to fill out our contact us and send us questions, email us, and and we'll respond back to you.
So our email address is info@atb-onestop.com. This information will also be uploaded to our YouTube ATB TV channel. So for those who register, you will get a link to the ATB TV channel. We hope that you subscribe, and we hope that this information was helpful for you. I'm Tamika Holmes, one of the founding partners for All Things Business One Stop Shop.
And I am Belinda Hobson, one of the co-founders and CEOs of One Stop Shop.